Yoshi!
Hey everyone, I'm Jean-Marc. I am engine programmer and the music composer at Handelabra Games. And just wanted to talk a little bit with you guys about what I do here and take some questions if you have any. So I have 2 degrees, one in music education and one in computer science. I originally just was in doing business software, and then started working on an old style indie game, and it was just sort of a passion project, I guess, if you will. It never ended up being released, but a lot of the experience that I learned from doing that actually ended up being really useful for Sentinels, particularly taking a whole bunch of things that need to work together but don't know anything about each other. And in the case of Sentinels, that would be the cards. A card can interact with a bunch of other cards, but it can't know anything about those cards. And yeah, my experience doing the music for the game that didn't get released was also useful in me having everything set up to start working on music for Sentinels. So that's how I got on board with the whole thing. So are people hearing me okay?
Looks like it.
Okay.
I'm also here.
So,
I'm John.
That's it as far as my introduction goes. I'll leave it open to questions. There's about a 10-second delay, so I guess I'll just fill it with a bunch of stuff.
What's your favorite Mario Maker level?
My favorite Mario Maker level? I played one called Metroid U, and it basically takes the Mario universe but makes a Metroid level out of them. So you start out small, and then you have to get to a certain place where you get the mushroom upgrade, and then you get the flower upgrade, and it's extremely well designed, and I think is like representative of kind of the interesting things that people can do with Super Mario Maker. By the way, if anyone doesn't have Super Mario Maker, it's like amazing. There's so much creativity potential, and I would say if you're into the idea of making games or doing level design, and you're not quite at a point where you can start doing that professionally or anything, it is a really cool tool to get some practice in doing that kind of thing. Let's see, first question here. What's your favorite part of the job? I like just about everything about my job. So I really enjoyed coming up with the engine for the game. That's sort of like modular logic that I was speaking about, where there's different pieces and they all have logic and they all have to work together, and is potentially infinitely expandable, is something that's really interesting to me. I'm not as big into programming things like physics or UI or 3D stuff like that. I really like the sort of those individual parts that all kind of talk back and forth and decide the priority of what's going to happen. Of course, I love doing the music, and especially the music for Sentinels has so much variety in it that every time I get to do something new. That means that it takes me longer than it otherwise would for something else. But it also means that, every time I get to try out a new set of sounds and try some new ideas and end up with something completely different than I've done before. So, and I love working with the 3 other J's. They're all great people, and I think we work really well together as a team. Having come from a team that didn't work well together, I know I sort of have two to contrast with that. So yeah. Which piece of music from SOTM are you most proud of, and which song were the hardest for you to compose? I don't know that I wouldn't say I get proud of my music, because I just feel like I'm learning things and putting them out there, and trying to make it applicable. But if there's some that I enjoy listening to more than others, I've heard the theme song a million times now, so I can't even evaluate that. But yeah, I really like doing the Ruins of Atlantis music, actually. It's very similar to some of the underwater music from RPGs that I really liked. So I would say that's one of my favorites. Rook City was really fun to do. It took a lot out of me, but it was, that and Pike Industrial Complex were really, I really got to put a lot of interesting ideas in there that I was excited to mess with. And which one was the hardest? Yeah, actually, the Pike Industrial Complex was the hardest one. I'm not very good with the mixing and mastering stuff, and the mixing for that one was incredibly difficult, and I had to get help. So it took me a long time to get that one started. Does it feel cool or a little intimidating to have your work as a separately packaged item like that?
Like the soundtracks.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I should have read the whole thing. Yeah, so, I mean, right when we finished the base pack, we talked to Jeremy about that, about making the soundtracks available, and we were both really excited about that. And yeah, like that's sort of, going into doing any kind of music, you always hope to make it available as its own thing. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty standard, especially for indie games now, is to make the soundtracks available. But, I listen to tons of game soundtracks all the time. And, now that I'm making my own, I really enjoy being able to make those available to other people as well. And, especially now that it's $2 each, if the cost was an issue for anyone, hopefully that will mitigate that. How long did you snicker about sucker punching Apostates' backside?
We're still snickering.
Yeah. That was a rules question that came out written exactly like that, with no joke intended, and then ended up being a joke that was repeated. So Apostate, his logic's a little different on each side in terms of getting destroyed. So we were saying, well, what happens if you sucker punch him using Tachyon's card? Sucker punch Apostate's backside. So. Is that you singing Argent Adept's vocalized? No, that is Christopher Bedell's brother, actually.
Anthony Bedell.
Yeah, Anthony Bedell. We got him to do a whole bunch of different takes, and he tried a bunch of ideas, and then the one we chose is the one we liked the best. But I did come up with all the little instrumental stings that are played when you use the instruments that he has.
So I have a question. I have a question for you, Jean-Marc.
Yes, John.
What decks or cards are you most interested in programming in the future expansions? And what music are you most interested in making in the future expansions? For villains, environments, or heroes, whatever. For both of those.
Yeah. I'm excited to program Omnitron X because he's a really cool hero in general. Trying to think from a programming standpoint. Um, I think Guys and Captain Cosmic will be really interesting to program. They do some very unusual things. As for villains, I actually haven't played all the villains yet. My wife and I play it together on occasion, and so we're kind of making our way through the villains, but we only get to play it once every little once in a while. So. Let's see. Anyone know the release dates for the new Sentinel Tactics expansions?
That's right up your wheelhouse.
Sometime.
I think there's some updates in the Greater Than Games forums.
You asked about music too. I'm super excited to do
yes.
Time Cataclysm. That's actually been the one I've been looking forward to since we started, because it's going to basically be a super mega mix mashup of all the environment music that's represented by that deck.
Cool.
So I probably won't add as much as I will like just mix all the music together and come up with something probably insane. How are the kids' programming classes coming?
Is Judah programming yet?
What's that?
Is Judah programming yet?
He mashes on the keyboard. Nothing sensible, but he's 8 months old, so I guess that's to be expected.
There's a, not for just yet, but there's a board game that sort of starts to teach programming elements that you can get for like toddler level, like 2, 3, 4-year-olds. So you should look into that.
Yeah.
It involves turtles, I think.
Would you want to make a video game adaptation of Sentinels Tactics? Of course. I like everything Sentinels, and yeah, I actually think Sentinels Tactics would be an easier game to program overall. I think that the card game, because of the huge quantity of cards and possible interactions, is actually a really complex game, and with each expansion gets just a little bit more complex, especially with certain cards that do something brand new. Whereas Sentinel Tactics, I think, would be a little more straightforward and easier to kind of see the scope of the things that could happen all at once.
Yeah, I think people have been running into the edges of the rules on Sentinel Tactics, but it's definitely a much smaller, rule space than Sentinels the Multiverse, at least so far.
With hero villains of Shattered Timelines, will there be alternate versions of the original? Example, Legacy and Iron Legacy. Yeah, we've actually talked about making an official Legacy theme song and then making the Iron Legacy kind of the antecedent to that. So, yeah. Please check that out. Actually, I have a question for people in the chat. Besides the theme song and Silver Gulch, are there any favorite pieces of music from Sentinels that you like?
Well, it takes them a while to answer. So I'm going to call Jen, add Jen to the call, and we'll get prepared for our game. But you continue to answer questions. I'm going to switch off your video here. Okay. And switch to Sentinels. And add Jen. Thanks, Jean-Marc. It was great to hear your insights. All right, let's get this game started.
Hello.
Hey, Jen. So we're asking the chat what songs they like the most.
Yep, I was watching the video.
We can go in and listen to a couple of them here. Do you want to talk maybe for a couple minutes about these different songs while we're looking at Spite right now? Jean-Marc?
Oh, sure. So by looking at it, you mean you're playing it on the screen?
Yeah, on the multiverse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Spite's, a psychopath, and he also, tries to be somewhat, present himself as someone in need or innocent, like with Innocent Child and Good Samaritan and stuff. So I thought, it could start out with some, ice cream truck kind of thing, like something like, oh, it's okay, I'm safe or whatever.
But there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, there was something like, it was just all warped, and it was off-putting right from the start, and then, as soon as you got close enough, everything just kind of the hits that are kind of not on beat are intentional because that's more off-putting. And then I just kind of found a bunch of scratchy sounds and stuff to end with.
Cool. And actually, this is good if you want to chat for a minute about how you do a variant. So I'm going to show the variant for Spite.
Yeah. So variant is case by case, but usually I try and find what's the main difference between the original character and their variant. And in the case of Spite, it's that he's been resurrected by Gloomweaver. So obviously taking some elements from Gloomweaver's theme and mixing it in with Spite's theme was sort of the way to go there. But I usually try and make it not too different, but it's usually removing one or two things, or changing an instrument or two, or adding one or two things. I try not to go overboard in how different it is from the original, but enough that it sounds like a variant of the original.
Yeah, I think Omnitron's in particular is almost like it's like an Easter egg that you notice the difference, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Instead of electronic, it's more like. Woo!
Yeah. All right. You guys